The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 11, printed in House Report number 112-680, offered by Mr. DeFazio of Oregon.
Pursuant to House Resolution 788, the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. DeFazio, and a member opposed each will control 5 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Oregon.
I thank the chair. Well, today the Do-Nothing Congress will slink out of town. It's going to be the earliest adjournment in an election year since 1960. But, you know, I guess the nation has no problems and there's no work undone, so it's just time to go home and campaign. It's pretty extraordinary. We've enacted one quarter the number of bills into law of Harry Truman's Do-Nothing Congress, 1947-48. So I guess this is the Do-Nothinger Congress. So here we are again today. We're going to consider today, the only work today will be 4 bills that have previously passed the House. Someone hasn't read their civics textbooks. If you pass a bill in the House and send it to the Senate, it's there. They'll consider it, they won't consider it. If you pass it again and send it again, doesn't make any difference. In fact, it's somewhat repetitive and wasteful of everybody's time when we could be doing postal reform to assure the future of the post office. We could be doing the Farm Bill. There are a lot of people suffering a horrible drought. We could be dealing with the sequestration, which there's concern on both sides of the aisle on that, but we're not. We're considering 4 bills previously passed and 1 new one. Well, I have a reasonable amendment to an unreasonable bill, which is now before us, which is the 1 new bill before us. And my amendment would ask that within 6 months, that's not very long, the Department of Transportation and the EPA submit a report to Congress on fugitive coal dust. Now, I've seen some couple of extraordinary letters that have been sent out saying, my God, this will stop projects and exports that are going forward, undue delay. I'm not aware of anything that would be delayed by this. It says the study will be done. It doesn't delay any ongoing applications or projects at all. But what it would do is potentially avert a tremendous amount of litigation down the road if we find that fugitive coal dust is not a problem, which the coal industry says, then that would relieve a lot of people in gateway ports and large cities in the West where coal dust is being proposed to transit through those cities, including cities in my district. People are very concerned about this. They want to know, is it a problem? How far from the loading point does fugitive coal dust get emitted from the car? Are there ways to deal with the fugitive coal dust? Does the surfactant work? Is that a solution? Should the cars be covered? Is that a solution? What are the problems? What are the problems at its destination in terms of whether or not there would be coal dust at the port destination? If the coal is stored outside, how is it transported onto the ship, et cetera, et cetera. So if we had these answers, we could talk about the safe and clean transport and allay a lot of concerns that are ultimately going to lead to a lot of litigation unless we know. Now, the industry says, oh, it's been studied. Well, no, it hasn't. And in fact, one railroad has pursued action against the coal industry because fugitive coal dust has caused safety problems on the railroad. It gets into the ballast. It blocks the ballast from draining. The ballast destabilizes, the tracks destabilize, and trains can derail. Now, that seems to me like a problem that should be dealt with. And there may be some very, very simple ways to deal with it. Some say surfactants, some say covered cars. There are other potential solutions out there. Wouldn't it be good to know? Wouldn't it be good to know? That's all I'm saying. A 6-month study and a report to Congress won't delay anything at all. It just will give us some knowledge, and I would hope that we legislate around here with a little bit of knowledge and not just off the cuff. With that, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Oregon reserves. For purposes, the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition.
I rise to claim time in opposition, and I reserve my time.
The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 5 minutes. The gentleman from Kentucky reserves. The gentleman from Oregon is recognized.
Does that mean there's only one speaker on their side?
That's correct.
Okay. How much time do I have remaining?
Gentleman from Oregon has 1 minute remaining.
Okay. Well, again, we will hear apocryphal denouncements from the other side of the aisle. My God, this will cost millions of jobs and billions of dollars and stymie our exports. No, it's a study. It's a study that would take 6 months. It's a study that, if it agrees with the industry's conclusions, would assure the American public that there won't be problems with these trains transiting through their hometowns. It's something we should know. It's something the government should look at. Apparently there's some proprietary studies that we aren't allowed to see that say there's no problem. Well, if that's true, then the railroads and the industry should let the American public see those proprietary studies. Really, not too many people are willing to take someone at their word when it comes to an issue of public health. So it's a very simple amendment. It won't delay anything. It'll take 6 months. It'll cost very little, and it will give us the information and knowledge we need to figure out how to safely transport coal. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Oregon yields back. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
While we have great respect for our friends on the other side of the aisle, I think we all recognize that we do have basic differences in our philosophy about the way energy is produced in America. It's quite clear that many people on the other side of the aisle are very much opposed to coal. Not only do they not want us to burn coal in America, they don't want us to export coal to other countries, even though it would help our trade deficit and would preserve jobs in the coal industry. This particular amendment on fugitive dust is really unnecessary because fugitive dust from the transport of coal is already regulated at the federal and state level under the Clean Air Act, as well as state fugitive dust laws and regulations. EPA already is required to study the environmental and health impacts from particulate matter from all sources, including fugitive sources, and of all compositions, including coal dust. And the most recent summary of that science was published by EPA in 2009 and supplemented in 2010. In fact, this week, the Army Corps of Engineers also announced that it will conduct an environmental assessment of the proposed coal terminal in the sponsor's district. So I would say that we already have adequate protection. There's no need for this amendment, although I'm sure it's offered with the very best of intentions. And so I would urge our members to oppose this amendment and would yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Kentucky yields back. All time having expired, the question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Oregon. Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to.
I ask a recorded vote.
Gentleman from Oregon seeks a recorded vote. Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Oregon